You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you so much for joining me here today on this Total Wellness Tuesday show, because today, for the very first time, I'm revealing the launch of my new book, The Rain Barrel Effect. This has been a book that's over 20 years in the making. Last week, very, very private release in our CabralSupportGroup.com. That's our free Facebook group. We let people know about it there. And this week, for the very first time, we're releasing it to the public. I could not be more excited to share this book with the world. We're trying to do it at the lowest possible cost. And that is because this is the information I've wanted to really get out to people in as concise a manner as possible. And that's because I truly believe that in this book holds the reason why people get sick and how to reverse that and get well. How people gain weight. Why do they gain weight? Why do they have trouble keeping the weight off? And then how to lose that weight and keep it off forever. And once you've lost the weight, once you've gotten well, because not everybody needs to lose weight, right? And not everybody needs to get well, but we all pretty much have to work on something in that area. And then hopefully each one of us wants to go on and lead the healthiest and happiest life that we can and live forever as long as we can, right? As healthy as we can. That is the goal. That's the goal of the Cabral Concept, is to allow you to change your body, allow you to take your body from a 7 right now. Maybe it's a 3, maybe it's a 2, whatever it might be, even going from a 9 to a 10. It's to be able to do that in both body and mind. So I literally started writing this book. The idea for this book came 2 decades ago. But it came 2 decades ago because I was a really sick kid. Reading some really, again, even back then I was into the research, but reading some very obscure research back then that I want to share with you that gave the idea to this book. But it was in 2010 when I was returning back from one of my internships. I went from India to an internship in the Netherlands. And when I was in the Netherlands, actually the very last day, I was doing a layover and getting ready to board my flight back to the US. I just sat down and wrote, and I wrote and wrote for probably 5 to 6 hours straight. And that was the beginning of the rain barrel effect. That was it. What was I writing at that time? Well, at that time, I wasn't writing the first half of the book. I was writing the second half of the book. The first half of the book tells you why you gain weight, why you get sick, why you start to just feel lower mood, lower energy, lower libido, lower drive, lower ambition, lower everything, right? Or the high cholesterol, the high blood pressure, the high blood sugar, why that happens. So that's the first half of the book. The second half of the book is what I started writing in 2010. That is the information I never had. I didn't possess at all until I went overseas, until I started to go deep into the Eastern-based practices of medicine, right? There's always going to be the people out there who went to medical school and have amazing medical-based degrees. And they have, they're advanced PhDs. They're doing this, they're doing that. I find that amazing and I read their research and I think it's incredible. But what's happening is the Western part of the world, the part of the world, right, with all these high tech, high pharmaceutical based inventions, they miss the equally important part, probably more important because you don't get sick in the first place if you can follow these principles. They miss the Eastern based practices, the practices that have been taking place for over 6,000 years. And the practices that were the original forms of medicine, original forms of getting people well. So that's what I share in this book. I'm going to give you a lot of those details. And really over the course of the Cabral Concept, I'll share everything from the book, of course, because the book is essentially being given away to you. That's my goal. And I think in another month, I'll actually be able to get free copies where people just pay free shipping and handling or just pay the shipping and handling. But for right now, it's on Amazon for very, very little cost, somewhere around $10. But what I want to do is this. I want to share with you right now how this all came to be. So when I was a really sick kid, and I had horrible, horrible allergies, right? So I didn't have any energy. My immune system was imbalanced. I was inflamed. I was in pain. I felt flu-like symptoms all the time, right? That was the Addison's disease, the myalgic encephalomyelitis, the POTS, the type 2 diabetes, the autoimmune issues, right? But I had debilitating allergies, and I had allergies all growing up. I really did. I had allergies since I can remember. I was getting allergy shots at 6 years old or 8 years old, whatever it might be, right around that age. And I was taking Claritin D, and then there was a whole scare with Claritin D that it could cause heart failure, and so I had to come off Claritin D. Like all of these things. I took Benadryl every night for like a decade, right? I took Sudafed every morning for like a decade. And it would cause, I didn't know what, it caused anxiety, my heart speeding up. Well, why? Because essentially I'm taking speed, right? If you look in the back, I'm taking ephedrine, essentially, a variation of ephedrine. But who knows any of these things, right? I mean, certainly not a high school kid from Medford, Massachusetts. I have no medical training, no medical background, no health background, that's for sure. And so none of this was brought to my attention. But I was sitting in an allergist's office. I was about 18 years old at the time, 19 years old maybe. And I picked up this research. It was literally just a photocopied journal article. And one of the writers talked about something called the rain barrel effect. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Rain barrel? Well, what is that? Well, essentially what a rain barrel is it catches the water from the gutter off the house. And as the barrel starts to fill up, well, you never see it, right? Because it's this big wooden barrel. It's a big plastic barrel. And you can look up a rain barrel on Google Images and check it out. Well, so as the barrel starts to fill up, you think nothing of it, right? I mean, the barrel's filling up unless you're taking the lid off because it has a lid over it, because you certainly don't want to smell all that rainwater that's been building up in there. And so you never know that it's starting to fill up. But as it starts to fill up, you just see those first little signs. The water just starts to leak under the cap down the sides, right? And then all of a sudden you get a big rainstorm, right? A big rainstorm. And what happens? Well, the water pours off the roof into the gutter and then into this rain barrel. And the rain barrel, the cover pops off and the water overflows over the side. And now it's leaking onto your grass, and the grass is essentially dying because it's overwatered, all of these things, if you never check on it. So here's what happens. Every single day in our life, every single day, we're exposed to, now more than ever, right? We're exposed to over 77,000 man-made chemicals in the environment. Over 77,000 man-made chemicals in the environment, with the majority of those being directly linked to cancer. People are like, well, why are cancer rates going up? Why are autism rates going up? Why are autoimmune rates going up? Why is this going up? Well, why? We have 77,000 man-made plastics, estrogen binders, all of these things in the environment. There's no wonder. Like, it's not a mystery. We have to stop all of this guesswork. There's no guesswork, and there's no pharmaceutical drug that's going to pull us out of this. It's not going to happen. What we have to do is start to understand what we're being exposed to, start to try to do a one-for-one trade-off, a one-for-one with the cosmetics, with the waters, with the plastics, with all of these different things, right? With all of them. And we could do that. It's not that hard. And I give you all the examples in the book as well. So the first part 1 of this book is Toxic Enemy 1, Toxic Enemy 2, 3, all the way through 10. And that's the first 100 pages of the book. So it's just education. It's teaching you about the heavy metals, right? Heavy metals are some of those toxins, right? So one of the toxic enemies is heavy metals. But I don't talk about the typical, I share with you the mercury, I share with you the aluminum, but I also talk about the ones that you may not have heard about before, right? Like, what about things like cadmium, right? Have you heard of that before? We talk about that and how it affects your thyroid, how it affects your hormones. And then we share the sources where you might be getting cadmium into your body. And then we talk about other things like, it's not always from outside of you. Sometimes it's from inside of you. And we talk about how bacterial dysbiosis in your gut or candida overgrowth inside your own body can be one of those toxic enemies, right? Because they overgrow. Not only do they overgrow and not allow you to absorb all of the, or manufacture all the B vitamins, right? Like your B12, people are so deficient in B12. Well, why? Well, why is because their gut's not balanced in the first place, right? They might be deficient eating foods with B12, but really their body's not able to manufacture, to utilize it because of low stomach acid or improper gut balance. But a lot of people don't know this either. The yeast overgrowth in your gut, if it's there, again, you can test for these things, but if it's there, produces waste. And that waste goes directly into your bloodstream. And then your liver has to process it, your body has to remove it from your body, and these are acids. These are acids. So people say, oh, that person's too acid. They might not be referring to pH. That's one of the great, great mysteries that a lot of people don't know about, a lot of great, great health practitioners. And the only reason I know about this is, again, from studying overseas, from studying all of these different things. And you don't need to go overseas to learn all of this. You don't have to. You can read it in books. But for me, seeing was believing, right? So for me, as a really sick kid, I said, you know what? If I ever get well, I'm going to share it with the world. That's what I've just made a promise. I didn't even know if I would ever get well again. This is in my early 20s. I didn't know. But what I said, I would share it with the world if I ever figured it out. So what I set out to do was this. Okay, I'm going to study with all the best people. That's what I did. I interned with people, whether it was nutritionists or great health coaches, strength and conditioning coach like Mike Boyle. I talked about my functional medicine and naturopath mentor, Dr. Pete. And then I said, okay, yes, I'll go back to school. I'll get my doctorate degree in naturopathy. All right, great. So I did that, but it was textbooks. You can't be a great personal trainer by reading a textbook. You can't be a great naturopath by reading textbooks. You can't. You have to go out there and you need to live it, right? You need to work on it with yourself, friends, family, open your practice, work with people in your practice or intern in someone else's practice or take additional certifications and do case studies. But you need to live it, and you can live it through case studies. But what I want to do is, I said this, okay, not enough for me. The courses, all these things, not enough for me. I need to see what is really working so that I can put this into practice one day. So what I did was I studied in India, all over India, the south. I studied in the middle of India. I studied in the north of India because they're very different. They're very, very different if you ever go to India. Then I studied in Sri Lanka. That was actually the first internship. That was wildly eye-opening. And then I went to China and I studied Chinese medicine and traditional Chinese medicine in a traditional Chinese medicine hospital. I studied acupuncture and Chinese physiotherapy. And that was amazing, especially for body work. I mean, it was amazing. To this day, Chinese physiotherapy is some of my favorite, I would say, body work, meaning like how to open up the body, make it more pliable, get rid of sciatica, put the body back in alignment. I had a great education over there. And then in the Netherlands, amazing functional medicine doctor that I studied there. We did microscopy, live blood microscopy. We did all sorts of different blood stain microscopy. We would look at people's actual living blood. So that was fantastic. And then, of course, I studied with all the great practitioners in the U.S. because, of course, I'm not denying the amazing education in the United States. And so I studied with many practitioners there. But my goal was this, is whoever has the best form of medicine in the world, whoever has the best form, that's what I'm going to practice. And as you know, you've heard me say this before, there is no one best form. There's no one best form. I am not a practitioner of any one thing. I'm a practitioner of everything, as much as I can be, okay? And that means if I'm not the expert in the Reiki, the acupuncture, the chiropractic, I refer out to that. But I know about it because I studied it and I made it my job so that I can help people to the best of my ability. For me, it's an obsession. For you, if you're a health practitioner, you don't need to take it to that level. But for me, it's okay if I'm not the expert in it. But here's what I found out is that every form of medicine is the best form of medicine in the world. And that includes conventional medicine. And that includes pharmaceutical drugs. And now that might seem like blasphemy coming out of my mouth as a true naturopath, as an old school naturopath. But here's the deal. There's a time and a place. There is a time and a place for pharmaceuticals. And I believe in that as well. Now, is it ever for chronic-based conditions? Not in my opinion. No way. Not in my opinion, because they do nothing except further imbalance the body. Can they be used in the short term to save someone's life? Of course, and they should be. And they should be, right? If you're looking to save someone's life, and it's almost guaranteed by using a pharmaceutical, but like, who knows, by using an herbal base or natural base, use the pharmaceutical, save a loved one's life. People think I'm against that. I'm not. But if you're trying to tell me pharmaceuticals are best for high cholesterol, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, all of these things, right? No chance. There's no chance because it does nothing to rebalance the body. Please tell me how a statin, your body's deficient in statins, that's why you have high cholesterol? No, of course not, right? Your body has an imbalance, and it's not just inflammation. It's what's causing the inflammation that could also lead to the high cholesterol. Genetics, cell membranes, sterols, hard fats versus soft fats. Yes, inflammation, poor food not proper for your ApoE allele, your ApoE genotype, like all of these different things. You can figure it all out. You really can. And that's the thing. That's what happened when I went overseas. I understood that all of these different practices help people get well, but not everyone. Why not everyone? Because everyone didn't fit in that particular bucket, right? Not everyone benefited from the acupuncture. Not everyone benefited from just the herbs. Not everyone benefited just from the panchakarma. Whatever these things were, whatever they were. but a lot of people did. They did. So now we know that people can get better with this, with this, with this, with this. Now we just need to know where to put them and what bucket to put them. But something's even greater than that, because I don't think most people would get as sick as they are now. And I think most people would get dramatically better, at least 80% better, if they understood this thing called the rain barrel effect. So back when I was in the allergist office, I read this photocopy. I wish I actually asked them for a copy of it because I can't find it to this day. And it's so disappointing because I didn't make this up. I shouldn't say that. I mean, you can find obviously the research on the rain barrel effect, but I wish I had that article. That's the one that I want to be. I would love to have actually photocopied that and put it in my book. How great would that be to have, come full circle 20 plus years later? That would be amazing because I put about 42 images in this book. That's the max that they would allow me to put in, actually printing house wise. But some of my favorite images I put in this book. This is the book that I don't think that I'll ever have to rewrite. It's the book that I wish that I had when I was 17 years old as a sick kid. It's what I wish I had. So back when I was in that office and I was reading about the rain barrel effect, I saw them explain very, very simply that the reason people get allergies, the reason all of these things happen, and we start to just build, basically what happens is we start to build up the toxins. So with allergies, why is it sometimes seasonal and not other times? Well, a lot of times with allergies, let's just say there is some gut permeability. It's huge with kids with autism, with asthma, with allergies, with any of these chronic inflammatory-based diseases. Dis-ease of the body is what I'm saying. I would even say psoriasis and eczema on that level as well. But here's the deal. If every time you eat, you're always spilling proteins from your intestines into your blood, that's just called leaky gut or intestinal permeability, well, your immune system's always fired up, right? It's always fired up. It's always on. Same with autoimmune-based diseases. So if you always have this low-level inflammation, or even I would say moderate-level inflammation, every little thing matters after that. So now, you have the fried food. Okay, that builds it up. And now you're stressed at work. And now you get less sleep that night. You have an argument with your partner, your spouse, your family, whatever it might be. And then, okay, now your body's really revved up. It's really inflamed. And all of a sudden it's springtime and the beautiful flowers are in bloom. But you, if you're like me, eyes closed shut, they're literally scratching like glass. And I had to take weeks off from either school, literally 2 weeks from school or work, because I could not open my eyes because they're swollen shut. When I would open them, they would tear up and they would almost feel like I was losing my eyesight because they were so dry and scratchy. And I would take Benadryl 2 at a time every 3 hours and it wouldn't touch it. I mean, it made it bearable, but wouldn't touch it. I mean, that's how bad it is for some people. And again, many people have it much worse than me. I'm only sharing my story. Your story might be much, much worse than mine, right? So I was able to keep pushing through. Some people, they are bedridden. There's a lot going on in their life, but I can tell you this, the rain barrel effect, if you're struggling right now with weight gain, if you're struggling to get well, or you have low energy, you just kind of feel like blah, it explains it. Because what happens is over time, your rain barrel, everyone's rain barrel is different, but your rain barrel begins to fill up over time. And what does that look like? Well, in the beginning, it's just like, oh, well, you don't wake up out of bed in the morning ready to start the day. You're a little bit more groggy. You want to hit that snooze button, right? And then later it's like, oh, well, your digestion doesn't feel as good. You can't digest food like you used to. Or you can't recover as quickly after a night of having a couple drinks. Or, stress gets to you to a greater degree, or smells like chemical sensitivities, like your body just can't deal with it. Why? Well, your liver's becoming more toxic. Your blood's becoming more toxic. Your fat cells are expanding because of all of those toxins. You're starting to get a little bit more inflamed. That barrel starts to rise, right? So we get the stress, we get the lack of sleep, we get all of those things start to build up. Maybe a little bit more of a poor diet, which back in the day used to be fine with. But you know what? The rain barrel started to fill up. And then all of a sudden, one day, you wake up, maybe like me, where your joints hurt. You have flu-like symptoms. You have, in a brain fog. You have weakness all over, lethargy, all of these different things. Blood sugar dysregulation is like, how did that happen? Like me, I said, how did this happen? And then you go to the doctors and they have no idea because they haven't been taught simple concepts. Simple concepts none of us have, right? None of us have. I didn't know about this till literally I'm reading this obscure research called, or it wasn't even called that. They just mentioned in passing the rain barrel effect, and it just stuck with me. It stuck with me because it can be applied to every different facet area of your life, which I want to talk about in a moment. But here's the deal. You don't wake up one day with Hashimoto's. You don't wake up one day with rheumatoid arthritis, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, any of these things. You think that you do, right? Because that's what you've been taught. You say, oh, my grandparents had it, my parents have it, and now I have it. Well, why didn't you have it 3 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Why wasn't it then? It's because your rain barrel hadn't filled up at that point. It's the simple explanation, and it is the answer. Now, is it more complex than this? Yes, because you have to figure out why that rain barrel filled up. What did it fill up with? That's when genetics matter. Genetics don't matter when your body's balanced. They honestly don't. I mean, yes, to a certain amount, I guess I'm downplaying it, 5%, 10%. But what matters is once things start to go wrong, they go wrong in a certain direction. So again, no one in my family really has Hashimoto's or any type of thyroid-based issue, okay? My mom is a little lower thyroid, yes. But like in the most part, like that's not in my genetic. My genetics is rheumatoid arthritis. My genetics is blood sugar dysregulation. Guess what happened to me when I was 17 years old and got really sick? My immune system became imbalanced. I didn't get MS. I didn't get Crohn's. I didn't get any of those things. I got rheumatoid arthritis and I got type 2 diabetes. Blood sugar dysregulation. Why? Well, that runs in my family. So that's what happened. But guess what I don't have today? Addison's disease, POTS, myalgic encephalomyelitis, rheumatoid arthritis, or type 2 diabetes. I have none of those. Nothing at all. My blood work looks great. My saliva hormones look great. My organic acid test, no more candida, no more SIBO, no more H. pylori, no more acid reflux. I don't have those things anymore. I don't have them anymore because I was able to learn from all of the masters, right? This book, The Rain Barrel Effect, 400 pages, right? It used to be over 700 pages. I had to keep whittling it down, saying what really matters? What do I really need to teach people? Because I don't want to give them everything. I want to give them what they need, and then they can explore from there. Because you will explore. This is a health journey that we are all on. That's what it's all about. Remember, I learn more every year. So could this book be updated in the future? Maybe. But what I didn't want to do was put things in this that may work. What I did was put things in this that have worked for 6,000 years. So first part of this book is literally explaining to you what are the toxins that you're most likely not aware of and how do you easily eliminate them in your life for no extra money. It's just a trade. It's a 1-for-1. If you're using this for soap, use this. If you're using this for toothpaste, use this. If you're using this for plastics, use this. If you're doing this for cooking, do this. You know, really simple things. And then I explain in depth, much more in depth than I'm doing right now, of how I discovered this, of how I discovered what the rain barrel effect really was and how that came about when I was really in India. And that's part two is what is the rain barrel effect? And I give you a great little quiz. The quiz is easy to do. It'll take you 5 minutes and it will allow you to see if you're not already sick, if you haven't already gained the weight, if you don't already feel like blah, how close you are to it, how to filling up your rain barrel, because it's very systematic. Things go wrong in a very systematic way in the body. Once you know what to look for, you now have the knowledge, and the knowledge really is power. So you can say, all right, I'm going to take the steps right now to what I call empty your rain barrel. And emptying your rain barrel is really what I want maybe my life's work to be. I want to teach people what I learned, especially from Ayurvedic medicine, of how to empty your rain barrel. Because that's what it's all about. My philosophy is a lot like, obviously, no surprise, right? My mentors. And she really combined, I moved to different types of practices, traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, chiropractic, all of those. But she was really Ayurvedic and functional medicine. If I had to only pick two, that's what I'd be doing today. And that's what I do mainly put together. But I combine the best of Ayurveda, their panchakarma therapy, their detoxification, with the best of functional medicine. And the best of functional medicine is the advanced lab testing. It's putting these things together. And not just having to say, well, in Ayurvedic medicine, they never use vitamins, so we're not going to use vitamins. No, they didn't because they didn't have them. And so my mentor, Dr. Pete, was very astute at saying to me, hey, Steve, if they had vitamin B6 back 3,000, 6,000 years ago, you don't think they'd be using that? She's like, you don't think that they would want to use that to help someone get well? And I said, well, yeah, I guess they would. Because, sometimes I have a tendency to question people. I really do. And it's not from an egomaniac position. It's not. It's that I want to learn. Some people might they take offense to that, but it's not. It's not meant to be that. It's like you have knowledge inside of you that I need to learn. And so I would question it. And she understood where I was coming from because she had much more experience than me. I mean, she's in her 60s when I'm going to learn from her. She's nearing the end of her career and I hadn't even begun, right? And so she had so much to teach me. And so I learned from that. The quiz that I wanted to see, if I had the foresight to take that when I was 16 years old, that would have been amazing, right? So then I talk about my search for answers In part 4, this is what I started writing when I was in the Netherlands in 2010, okay? Coming back from one of those internships in India, was in the Netherlands, had already been to Sri Lanka, had studied in a bunch of different places. I was basically nearing the end of my internships, and I sat down and I just wrote. And this was the basis, even way back then, because I had already been, going through my schooling, all that, my de-stress protocol. The de-stress protocol is what I use every single day in my practice. People say, how do you practice medicine? How do you practice medicine? Again, I'm not practicing conventional medicine, right? When I say medicine, I say natural health. I need to stop saying medicine. It's natural health, right? We're practicing natural health, natural methodologies. That is what we're doing. Traditional naturopathy for the most part, right? We have functional medicine, which is kind of the new school naturopathy, which is marvelous, right? You need to combine the two. But the de-stress protocol is exactly what I do in my practice. This is going to be the basis for what I teach in my initial certification to other health coaches and to just community members coming early this fall. But right now, it's all free in the book. Literally, it's all in the book, every single step, because I want people to use this book, because you can use this book for yourself. This is not for health practitioners, right? It's for health practitioners to begin to implement in their practice, but it's for everyday people to get themselves well, to help them to lose the weight, and to help them to live longer. So the de-stress protocol is literally teaching you the right diet for you. I call it the right diet for every type, right? For every type. It's not one diet. It's not keto. It's not paleo. It's not lectin-free. It's not grain-free. It's the right type of diet for you and how to figure that out. I talk about exercise. I talk about stress. I talk about sleep. I talk about how to remove toxins. I talk about the emotional factor that no one talks about. So when you go to a lot of naturopaths or natural health practitioners and they don't ask you how you're feeling, what's your mood like? What are your stress levels like? You need to know that because the psychology affects the physiology, and I go on deep with that. I not only talk about the emotions, but after I talk about supplements, I talk about the mindset that you have to have. The mindset that you have to have, I actually talked about it on yesterday's show, on yesterday's Mindset and Motivation Monday. The fastest turnarounds of people are when they begin to expect things will change. That's it. And I talk about that even in my own transformation. All of a sudden, one day, I was just in such bad shape. I said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. It's not even worth it. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to do this. I'm not even going to really expect to get better. I'm just going to go on and live my life. I'm going to still try to get well, but I'm just going to go live my life. That's what I did. Probably within the next 12 to 18 months, I was better. Now, again, keep in mind, will it ever take you 12 to 18 months? I hope not. But if it does, guess what? You still then have the rest of your life to get well. For most people, the turnaround I see is typically 12 weeks. Why the 12 weeks to 16 weeks? Because all of the red blood cells in your body have now been turned over. You're a new you. You're a new you in 3 months. You can wait 3 months to get well because here's the deal. Usually within 21 days, you're feeling so much better. So you see that much progress that you're like, sure, I'm going to continue on with this. I'm already feeling great. Why would I not continue with this? That's why I tell health practitioners and everybody, get people a quick win. Get yourself a quick win. Start to feel well. I came up with the Dr. Cabral Detox because I needed to start to empty people's rain barrel the fastest way humanly possible, just to get them the quick win, to get them on the right track. And the reason is that once they started to lower their total toxin load, you're going to learn about the total toxin load in this book as well. Once you do that, then, and only then can you even really utilize all the great foods and vitamins you're putting in your body. Because if your body's overwhelmed and your liver's overwhelmed and you're asking it to do more, that's not the answer. In this book, I talk about a lot of times the way to get people well is not to do more, but actually to do less. It's to teach them to exercise less, to be less stressed, to do all of these, just the things that got them in this position. But also, the less is the taking the toxins out of the body. And yes, you can do that with the good foods and the nutrition, the juices and the greens and all those things. And they're all amazing, and I talk about them. But we have to start to change our philosophy that more is always better. Because more is not always better. More, a lot of the time, is what got us into this position in the first place. So the de-stress protocol, starting on page 170 in part 4, is how to do that. And then I go through that. That's basically the whole rest of the book, right? So the second half of the book. Then I wrap it all together because people always want to say, okay, I read all this information. This is what happens, right? Even myself, I'm totally in this group. But you read these great books, and then you don't start to implement because you know what? It was so much material. Like, what are you supposed to get out of this? Here's the deal. For people who don't even want to read the whole book, they just want to say, tell me what to do. Then you do that, and that's on page 353. And so what I do is I just call it 21 days to your new life. And I teach people how to begin to empty the rain barrel the fastest way possible. Because if you're not a believer in natural health. Let's say a family member of yours isn't. A lot of times, I'm working with a lot of women and their husband's just like, yeah, I don't believe in any of this natural health stuff. My doctor never told me about that. And I'm just like, hey, I'm making fun of guys. I'm a guy myself, and I was that guy. And I was not that guy too long ago either. It wasn't that long ago. But the truth, all kidding aside, the truth is that a lot of people won't be believers, and they won't be, and that's totally fine. It makes it a little harder on you when you're trying to put this all into practice. But the truth is this: get yourself better. You're going to be a role model for everyone around you. They're going to ask you, how did you lose the 10 plus pounds in 20 days? How did you gain all of this energy? How did you get that glow back to your skin? You look 10 years younger. We hear that all the time. You have more vibrancy to your hair. You have more pep in your step. You're waking up without your alarm clock. You have less joint pain, less brain fog. You have more energy. You're getting another hour out of the day. How did you do this? How did you do this? Well, then you can share it with them. And then they might be willing to listen because they see your transformation. They say, how did you do that? And you say, I did this. And that's the whole goal of all of this. The whole goal of the Cabral concept is not for you to say it's your information, not for me to say it's my information. It's us to share the universal truths that have been around from the beginning of time with others. And one of those truths is that you cannot get well. You cannot live a long, long, healthy life. You can't keep the weight off, and you can't enjoy the health and happiness without changing this body, without changing the vessel that carries us through life. And even if you're feeling great, then you're doing a lot perfect in your life. And we like to hear that, right? Or again, you have good genetics. People always ask like, well, how come my friend can have, 2 drinks a night, get 6 hours of sleep, do this, this, and this? Well, remember, some of our bodies start to fall apart in our wellness in our 30s. Some of us, like myself at 17, some even younger. I feel bad for the kids that are 5, 6, 7 years old with all these issues, right? Some even younger. But why is it that some people, hey, they're good in their 60s and 70s? Well, you know what? Some people do hit the genetic lottery. They really do. And their body can deal with a lot of those things. I'm not one of those people. For sure I'm not. Neither were my parents or my grandparents. That's not in our genes. But I'll tell you right now, 20 plus years later, I feel way better. I have more energy than I ever have in my life. I can't remember being 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 with this much energy, with this much zest for life, with this much vitality. There's no chance. And I feel better than I did last year and the year before that and the year before that. And now we're 3 and 5 year olds. I'm not getting any more sleep, that's for sure. So here's the deal. What I did was took my own medicine, right? I started to follow this and now I live it. This is how I live my life. Sure, I have a cheat meal. I enjoy myself. There's no doubt about that. I still go out with my buddies. These are all things that I love to do in life. But you know what? Here's the deal. If you empty your rain barrel when you go out and have a couple of drinks with friends, when you go out and have a pizza, when you go out and have bread and pasta like I do on a Saturday night, I enjoy bread and pasta. I'm Italian and Portuguese. It's my heritage. I love it. I grew up every Sunday going to my grandmother's and her cooking homemade sauce and me having that. And again, I have like nightshade issues and all these issues. Well, here's the deal. I emptied my rain barrel. And I don't think anybody can empty it all the way, but I emptied it a lot. And now when I go and have the cheat meal or have a couple drinks, I feel nothing the next day. I feel fantastic. Why? Because I only then filled the rain barrel up a little bit, right? Not enough for all my symptoms to come back. But guess what? If I went out eating poorly, drinking all the time, getting less sleep, all of those things, well, of course, my rain barrel would fill back up. Guess what would happen? I'd get rheumatoid arthritis again. I'd get type 2 diabetes again. I'd probably have fatigue issues. I'd have brain fog. I'd have the myalgic encephalomyelitis, the inflammation, the mitochondrial damage. I would have all of those things and probably more. But I don't, because I emptied my rain barrel and I begin to rebuild my life. That's what I want for you. I hope this was helpful. It's, of course, not going to be the last time I speak on this topic. And I want to thank you. I really do. This is very, very meaningful to me because me being able to publish this book and be this excited to get it out to you is only because I see the success stories already coming in. I see the way that people are changing their lives. And I just know that this little handbook, I call it a handbook, that using this handbook is going to allow you to take your life to the next level. And I cannot wait to hear your success story soon. Thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you can ever imagine. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.